Unsolved Mysteries.
Her name is Dolly, and her very existence has set off a compelling debate regarding the future of cloning. How far is science willing to go? Should cloning be used to duplicate living human beings? Can it be used to bring back the dead? In Los Angeles, a young boy is rushed to the hospital in a state of full cardiac arrest. 2 years later, a little girl is brought to the same ER, unconscious and battered. The common link is this woman, a live-in nanny accused of murder and assault. He can pick up your scent even from a moving car. He's one of nature's original and best detectives. Meet Yogi the Bloodhound. We'll follow Yogi as he tracks a kidnapper and his young victim. It was codenamed Operation Stargate, and it may have been the most incredible espionage program ever launched by our government. David Morehouse was part of it, but Morehouse claims he was no ordinary secret agent. He was a psychic spy for the CIA. Join me for these fascinating new cases and more on tonight's Unsolved Mysteries. It is just a nondescript wooden building, but it was once headquarters for an incredible clandestine operation. The man you're about to meet claims he was part of that operation. He was one of America's psychic spies.
What I was trained to do is to transcend time and space, to view persons, places, or things remote in time and space, and to gather and report intelligence information on the same. And some examples of those targets would be soft targets, which would be the mind of a test engineer or of a design engineer or of a military figure or a political figure, or hard targets, which were weapons, research and development facilities, the locations of submarines, the locations of counter-narcotics targets, things of that ilk.
I'm spiraling down, approaching the target. I'm in the middle of something, just outside of a big building. There's a great deal of activity here. Lots of noise, confusion. I can't quite make out the target location yet.
Can you find the target?
There's 2 armed guards protecting the entrance to this building.
Good, move there and let's see what we find.
I'm moving through the door. I'm going up a staircase. Looks like there's two more armed guards.
Pass through the wall and describe the contents of that room.
I sense there's going to be some sort of trial or judgment that's about to take place. My God, it's him. It's the target.
It is called remote viewing. The goal is to witness distant events and gather information by harnessing the psychic power of the mind. For at least 2 decades, American intelligence agencies employed this technique. Most recently codenamed Stargate, it was a top-secret espionage program the government never wanted you to know about. David Morehouse certainly never expected to be the man to blow the whistle on it. David Morehouse was third-generation Army, the son and grandson of career officers. He graduated from Brigham Young University at the top of his class. His background in ROTC training put him on the military fast track. By 1987, Morehouse was a company commander with the Rangers, the Army's elite fighting unit. In March of that year, he was sent to the Kingdom of Jordan to take part in a desert training exercise. But a stray machine gun bullet would soon change his life forever. The bullet lodged in Morehouse's helmet, knocking him out cold. It was then that he claims he experienced a vision of overwhelming power.
I had a messenger, or I could call it an angel or a spirit, that came to me during this time that I was knocked out. I had spent some 13 years of my life practicing the art and science of taking human life, and yet here I stood in the presence of something who said to me, very vividly, I recall, said to me, what you have chosen in life, the path you have chosen in life, is the wrong path, and you are now to choose a path of peace. And then it was over.
But these sketches by Morehouse are testimony that it wasn't over. He began having horrifying dreams, nightmares so debilitating they drove him to an Army psychologist. The psychologist suspected that concussion had somehow released in Morehouse a latent psychic faculty.
I half hoped that this individual would have me taken away and evaluated and medicated and make it all stop. Instead, what he did do was walk over to a file safe and pull out 3 blue folders that were stamped Top Secret Grill Flame, and brought them over and proudly presented them to me and set them on my lap and said, I would like you to review these, and I would like your analysis tomorrow.
The program was then codenamed Grill Flame. That night, Morehouse pored over the files, especially the transcripts of the remote viewing sessions.
The verbiage used was almost frightening, chilling, pass through the wall and describe the contents of the room. That made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. It intrigued me beyond any description that I could possibly offer. And the next morning, before the psychologist ever even came in, I was standing at his door, waiting to come in and talk to him about it.
Relax. Keep your focus.
David Morehouse volunteered to join the unit. Working with a monitor, he learned to use biofeedback to control his brain waves and send his consciousness to the far points of the globe.
I can feel the warmth of the sun on my back and the cold on my nostrils.
I was obviously apparitional in form, and I was hovering above whatever it was from a very close distance, and I was moving. It wasn't the object that was moving, I was moving across the object.
Peaking, dropping sharply. Hell, I don't know. I think it's a mountain.
During practice sessions, the monitor placed a photograph of the target site in an envelope across the room.
I missed it, didn't I?
His first time out, David Morehouse demonstrated he had genuine ability.
My first target was Mount Fuji. I was shocked. I didn't believe it. In that instant, I had gone to Mount Fuji and was describing what I saw, smelled, heard, and felt at that location.
Over the next year, David Morehouse worked with 7 other remote viewers at Operation Stargate, steadily refining his psychic talents. One of his most difficult assignments came on February 17th, 1988. On that day, Marine Lieutenant Colonel William Higgins was taken hostage in Beirut, Lebanon, by a group of Shiite Muslims. Colonel Higgins was head of the United Nations group monitoring the fragile truce between Israel and Lebanon.
My God, it's him.
Are you certain?
Of course I am. This is Colonel Higgins.
English? You want English? Who sent you?
Morehouse says he and the other remote viewers, desperate to find Higgins, began a marathon series of psychic sessions.
He's not doing well. He looks worse.
Even though we could see him being moved, and we could describe his surroundings in the room, and the beatings, and his physical conditioning, and his emotional condition, we still could not, or were not ever able to provide an address that would allow a rescue team to go in and effect the hostage rescue.
He's gonna die. I can taste it.
Morehouse claims that the remote viewers psychically sensed Higgins' death a year and a half into his captivity. Just a few days later, the kidnappers confirmed that Colonel Higgins had been murdered. More than 2 years would pass before his remains were recovered. Another major challenge for the remote viewing unit came just before Christmas in 1988. On December 21st, Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing all 259 people aboard and 11 more on the ground. Hours later, with the cause of the crash still unknown, the remote viewers were called into an emergency session. They were not given any details or a specific target, only a set of coordinates. Their visions would prove to be remarkably similar.
2938.
I'm having difficulty focusing. There's a great deal of emotion here. I see people sitting in a row, some sleeping, relaxing, some moving about. I'm gonna call this one. I'm looking at the interior of an airplane. That's it. My God, the entire plane is disintegrated.
For us, remote viewers, it was a tremendous emotional toll to us to watch that catastrophic event take place and to see the confusion of these souls that were instantly there. As everything that was physical about them plummeted to earth, their souls remained there in this ethereal state.
Within a day of the disaster, Morehouse and the other viewers had pieced together a scenario. They believe Flight 103 was blown up by a terrorist bomb hidden inside a suitcase in the forward cargo hold. Amazingly, after 2 months of detailed investigation, the FBI and the Scottish police came to that exact conclusion. At Fort Meade, Morehouse continued his psychic sessions, but he was becoming disillusioned. He claims the program's leaders were pushing the remote viewers to use their minds as tactical weapons.
We were starting to develop the protocols to be able to access the mind of another human being for the purpose of destruction or death. And that is when I finally drew the line and said, I cannot any longer be a part of this. I can't see this tremendous gift turned into a very powerful and tremendous and very elusive dark weapon, which is what we were going to do with it.
David Morehouse decided to violate his security oath and go public. The government's response was swift. They threatened him with court-martial. Morehouse chose to resign his commission and leave the Army. He eventually wrote a book, Psychic Warrior. In 1995, the CIA admitted the existence of Operation Stargate. In the wake of the negative publicity, the program lost its congressional support and was shut down.
English? You want English? Who sent you?
How great are the untapped powers of the human mind? Can they release us from the prisons of our bodies? Can remote viewing be used to reveal the secrets of the past, the present, even the future? If you believe David Morehouse, the potential is real. The ramifications both awesome and ominous. Coming up, when researchers announced that a sheep had been successfully cloned, controversy spread worldwide. What happens when science circumvents nature? But first, the search for a fugitive nanny suspected of assaulting the very children entrusted to her care. July 25th, 1990, a chilling nightmare for any parent. Paramedics rushed 4-year-old Ashley Berman into an emergency room outside of Los Angeles. She was unconscious and barely breathing.
Can you tell me how this happened?
She apparently had some sort of seizure and fell and hit her head.
How far was the fall?
It wasn't far. She just fell on the floor. I don't know. I wasn't there. I was just with the nanny.
She had these seizures before?
Yes, she's had them before, but it's never been this serious, no.
A short time later, the doctor made a stunning accusation. Ashley had been physically assaulted. The likely suspect, her nanny.
I looked at him and said, no way. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, Rosa would never hurt Ashley. She took care of her. We had neighbors that would see Rosa and Ashley at the park. They would call me up and tell me how lucky I was to have somebody like Rosa. I did not believe him.
With more and more working couples facing the daunting challenge of earning a living and raising a family, many parents have been forced to rely on live-in nannies to care for their children. Most of the time, it's the beginning of a loving and wonderful relationship. But every so often, as in the case of Jeff and Sharon Berman, parents discover that they have unwittingly subjected their child to a reign of terror.
Rosa, we understand you worked for our neighbor. How long did you work there?
The Bermans met Rosa Hernandez in 1988 when she applied to be the live-in nanny for 2-year-old Ashley. That first day, Rosa was accompanied by her cousin who helped to translate.
¿Te gustan los niños y los niños te gustan a ti?
Oh, a mí me encantan los niños. Me encantan.
Rosa was very highly recommended by various neighbors. One neighbor that she worked for a couple years beforehand who swore by her that said that she was wonderful and she would be perfect to watch our daughter and that she had experience with kids and she was very good at what she did.
Ashley es muy importante.
But how would Ashley respond to Rosa? The Bermans had the answer very quickly.
Ay, qué belleza.
When we brought Ashley down to meet her, Ashley seemed to connect very well as Rosa connected with Ashley. So I felt that this was definitely going to work out and that she'd be good with Ashley.
The next week, Rosa Hernandez moved in with the Bermans. From the outset, she and Ashley were practically inseparable.
Everything seemed to be working out fine. Ashley seemed to be very fond of Rosa. We'd be at a store, Ashley would always go over towards the gums and say, can we buy this for Rosa? She always wanted to buy things for Rosa. She'd always talk about Rosa. She always wanted to, make Rosa be happy and feel happy.
For a year, all went well. Then, however, Ashley began suffering from a series of mysterious injuries.
How are you doing? Oh my goodness, what happened to your arm?
A boy hit me.
At school?
Every time we asked Ashley, what happened, how did you get this, she'd always tell us it happened at school, that she hurt her hand on the swing, that a little boy hit her with a shovel, another child hit her with a Barbie. There was always an answer that it happened at school.
Let's take a look here.
But in February of 1990, it happened at home. A deep gash on Ashley's head that required several stitches.
You fell down the stairs. Were you there, Mom?
No, the nanny was with her.
What happened?
She jumped in the stairs and she tripped and she fell.
According to Rosa, Ashley had been periodically blacking out and experiencing seizures. Although the Bermans never witnessed an episode themselves, they feared Ashley had developed a serious physiological disorder.
We put Ashley through all kinds of tests. We put her through CAT scans, MRIs, which were very difficult to get a 4.5-year-old child into an MRI. With all the tests, they could find absolutely nothing that related that she had any tendency really towards seizures. All indications is that she was a very healthy child.
A few months later, Jeff Berman came home early from a walk to find that his very healthy child had once again been severely injured.
Rosa,
La niña se cayó. Se cayó la
slow down,
niña.
slow down. What happened? Oh,
Se cayó la niña. Ay.
come here, calm down. What happened?
She tripped. She tripped.
Mommy, is that what happened? You tripped?
And Rosa proceeded to tell me that Ashley had fallen down, she was wearing some shoes, and she tripped, and she fell down. And I felt comfortable that she had just fallen. I saw the shoes were on the kitchen floor. So when, again, the scene was reenacted by Ashley, it all made sense.
Can you tell me what happened?
Just 9 days later came Ashley Berman's frightening brush with death.
Quick check here.
I thought Ashley was going to die on us. I just looked at her, she was all pale, hooked up, and I thought we were going to lose her. And pretty much we were told if she survived, if she lived, she'd more than likely be retarded or blind or both.
All right. Give me a CAT scan, full set of lab, and run the IV at TKO.
After I examined Ashley, I was suspicious that Ashley might have been abused. She had some small hemorrhages in the retina. This is a condition that's associated with shaken baby syndrome.
Dr. Gillingham decided to check into Ashley's medical history and phoned her pediatrician.
I have one of your patients here, an Ashley Berman. She's showing signs of retinal hemorrhaging.
It wasn't until I spoke with Ashley's pediatrician that we made a connection to a prior case where the same caregiver had been involved in taking care of a child who died of what they thought might be child abuse.
This way, number 2.
For the Bermans, it was a shocking piece of news. 2 years earlier, Dr. Gillingham had treated a 17-month-old boy who was rushed to the hospital in a state of full cardiac arrest. That day, the toddler had reportedly been in the care of Rosa Hernandez. The Bermans knew of the incident, but had heard the boy choked on a hot dog.
We were able to resuscitate the child, get the child breathing and with a good blood pressure and pulse. The child was subsequently admitted to the hospital, but then died within the next, I think, 17 or 18 hours.
An autopsy revealed that the boy had a fractured skull with internal bleeding. His death was ruled a homicide. However, there was not enough evidence to file charges against Rosa Hernandez. Now, with Ashley Berman fighting for her life, police believe they had a case against Hernandez. She was charged with child abuse and murder.
Now, Rosa's first reaction was she looked at me with an evil look in her face and said, "Why, mister? Why? I love Ashley. I love Ashley." And then they let her out.
Ashley spent a full week in the hospital and eventually made a complete recovery. Today, she is 11 years old and more than willing to talk about her experiences with Rosa Hernandez.
She used to push me down the steps. I would hide her remote control to get her back, and so she took silverware and hit my nails. And she would also take her earrings and poke them through my nails. And she would bang my head against the walls, the doors, and the wood floors.
In March of 1991, Rosa Hernandez pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and child abuse. Despite protests from the Bermans, she was released on her own recognizance and promptly disappeared.
I believe that it's been a long enough period of time that she feels safe, and I fear that that's true, because if it is, she's back in the States and she may be babysitting right now another child that's going to fall victim to her abuse.
Today, some 7 years after her traumatic ordeal, Ashley Berman has a younger brother and sister and a bright and promising future.
Every time that I look at her, I visualize what could have been. The fact that she could have died, she could have been retarded, she could have had major learning disabilities. I'm very thankful that we were lucky that Ashley is a normal, healthy 11-year-old child today, because she may not have ever made it past 4.5. She would have been 4.5 forever.
Maria Rosa Hernandez, a native of El Salvador, is now 32 years old. She is 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighs approximately 130 pounds. She is a mother of 3. Hernandez speaks broken English and has what appear to be burn scars on her right upper forearm. When we return, police enlist the astonishing abilities of Yogi the Bloodhound in the desperate search for a little girl. He doesn't have a badge. He never went to the police academy. He doesn't even own a uniform. But when it comes to tracking down criminals, he's one of the best. This is Yogi, a 5-year-old purebred bloodhound, one of 1,000 bloodhounds currently working in law enforcement. Forget all the modern investigating techniques. In this story, Yogi proves that nothing beats a remarkable nose of a bloodhound.
Looking for a little girl, sir.
May 18th, 1993. Police in Englewood, Colorado, a Denver suburb, searched door to door for 5-year-old Allie Bareilles. Allie was last seen playing in the courtyard of the apartment complex where she lived with her family. Her babysitter went inside for a few minutes. When she returned, Allie had disappeared. The search continued for 4 days, but police could not find a single clue. Finally, they turned to an age-old crime-fighting tool.
I had never been exposed to the Bloodhounds and the work that they do, and it was certainly anything we could try to do to find this little girl.
As news cameras rolled, Yogi the Bloodhound and his handler, Canine Officer Jerry Nichols, went to work. Yogi took Allie's scent from clothing she had recently worn, then started moving.
Where'd he go, buddy? Go get him.
He first went up the stairs, zeroing in on a single apartment, Allie's home. It was a good sign. Yogi was on the right track.
I wanted to have hope that this bloodhound would be able to find our granddaughter. From the balcony on the second floor, I was watching the dog work. And I felt there was a sort of comfort that I felt, because I felt now they're gonna find her. You know, now they're gonna find her, and they're gonna find her alive.
Where is he? Let's go. Yogi, where'd he go? Come on.
Yogi led Jerry out of the apartment complex and south, down the street. The media crush followed close behind, recording every move. The dog wasn't bothered at all.
He didn't care. He was oblivious to everything other than what he was doing, because he's happy doing that.
Where is it? Come on. Where is it?
Well, the bloodhound is by instinct a tracker. By nature, it's something they're bred to do and they live to do. Their sense of smell is just incredible. The loose skin around the face it just acts as a place for the scent to be attracted to. The skin folds, the jowls, the slobbering is the moisture that the dog is emitting will actually help enhance that scent around his face. It's putting the moisture in the air. And those long, dangling, floppy ears, it kind of stirs it up in front of him.
Where is he, buddy? Leave it.
A scent trail, whether animal or human, comes from thousands of dead skin cells that are constantly being shed. If those cells are not swept away by weather changes like snow, rain, or severe winds, the scent could remain clear for up to a month.
Where is he? Come on.
When a dog is introduced a specific scent to track, he basically focuses on that scent and forgets and ignores the rest. His job is, this is the scent I have to work, this is what I'm going to go with.
As Yogi followed Allie's scent, Jerry quickly recognized a familiar pattern in the way the dog was working.
If a person's walking on foot, the scent's a little bit stronger, and they're going to stay by the sidewalk, but he is working wide between the street and between the fronts of businesses, and he's still picking it up on the fringes. And seeing him do that before, it just, in my mind, he was working a car.
Where is he?
Unbelievable as it seems, we leave scent trails even from fast-moving cars. The skin cells shoot out through the car's ventilation and exhaust system and are deposited on the side of the road where a bloodhound's nose can quickly pick them up.
Let's go. Where is he? Come on.
We've even done scenarios in training where we'll put a person in a trunk that's sealed up, and they still can pick it up. His world is his nose.
Where is he, buddy? Good boy. Go get him. Come on.
Yogi led the search party south for several miles, covering almost 40 city blocks. At the entrance to a freeway, he headed straight up the westbound ramp.
Yo, where is he, buddy? Oh, good dog. Yeah, good dog.
I was very skeptical that that dog was doing anything other than going for a walk. But when he took that first ramp to I-470 and did so with so much confidence, then I started to wonder, you know, maybe the dog is really onto something here.
Now we're on an interstate. As far as I know, we could end up coming around I-70 heading towards California.
Do you think he's still got it?
Oh, I know he's got something. I mean, that's why he's coming this way, but I don't know how far we're gonna go or where we're gonna go. Let's go. Come on, buddy.
The search party drove west to the next exit. Would the scent trail lead Yogi further down the freeway or off the exit ramp?
Come on. Let's go. Leave it. Where is he? Come on. Sure enough, he kept on working, and he went past it. So then we'd load him up, go to the next exit, and we did the same thing several times.
To save time and effort, the police decided to skip the fourth exit and move on to the fifth. Yogi quickly made it obvious that they had overshot the mark and lost the trail.
He doesn't have it here. We're gonna have to get back on the other side. We've had everything going westbound up to here. Now it's not here. Come on. Where is he? Come on.
They backtracked 1/2 mile to the previous exit. Yogi again picked up the scent and led them off the freeway. He headed in the direction of a wooded area, Deer Creek Canyon.
Good dog.
The canyon is located here, southwest of the apartment complex where Ali Bareilles disappeared. Yogi had been trailing Ali's scent over city streets, parking lots, and freeways for more than 7 hours. He had covered nearly 14 miles.
Yo, come on, let's go. Come on. Pick it up. I know you're hot. Come on. Let's go.
He was slowing down a little bit. The tongue was really dragging, and he's really slobbering. And I could tell he was getting hot.
Yogi, where is he? Come on. Come on.
A hound has a drive. Unfortunately, they will run themselves to death.
Where'd he go?
If they get tired, they don't care. They don't stop.
I know it's hot. Come on. That's a boy. Come on.
Though it was clear Yogi's strength was failing, Yogi refused to stop.
Oh, good dog. Come on. Good boy.
He basically kept looking at me as to why are we stopping?
Come on. Come on. Come on.
I'm not ready to stop. I want to keep going. This is my track. I want to get there. It's kind of hard for him. He didn't really appreciate me putting him up, but I put him up.
Let's go. Up.
Jerry felt he had no choice. Yogi had to rest. Before Jerry could bring the dog back the next morning, human volunteers picked up the search. Within an hour, they knew why Yogi had not wanted to quit. The body of Ali Bareilles was found less than 2 miles from the point where Yogi had been forced to stop.
Hey, over here!
Without Yogi, Ali's body might never have been discovered.
I think at first that didn't sink in because I was pretty upset at the fact that Ali was found dead. And then over time, I realized everything worked just right. You know, he was started right, the dog worked well. And to end up where he did, it just, yeah, I was totally amazed. I really couldn't believe it at first.
Because he was able to find her, we were able to at least have a decent funeral for our granddaughter. We were able to view her. We were able to be there with her. It was something because we felt that we had found her. We had a type of joy that we felt, okay, everybody is here again together.
Boy, come on, let's go.
Yogi's job was not over. Ali's killer unwittingly left behind a single vital clue, his scent. Yogi took that scent and trailed it back to the same apartment complex where Ali had lived. The killer had apparently returned to the scene of the kidnapping.
The track was working, so that focused our investigation as to, we were looking for someone that had been in the same area and brought our focus back to the apartment building.
Police have not yet found Ali's killer. While the investigation continues, Ali's family and friends have set up a foundation to donate bloodhounds to police departments.
We were going to do something in memory of our granddaughter. And my thoughts were, what if there were always bloodhounds available minutes, seconds, you know, after a child is called in missing? What if those bloodhounds would be available? Would they be able to find a child before that child gets hurt? Would this one bloodhound, had he been there minutes after our granddaughter had been abducted, would this bloodhound have been able to find our granddaughter right there in somebody's apartment in the apartment complex before she was hurt?
These dogs have a purpose in law enforcement. I mean, we're out here working for the communities and the citizens do not care what it takes to get the job done. They just expect you to do everything you can. And if this is a tool to help us do that, that's what we do, and that's how we approach it. And they really have done some amazing things for us.
Yo, come on, let's go. Come on. Pick it up. I know you're hot. Come on. Good dog.
Next, she symbolizes both the power and the pitfalls of modern science. She is the first perfect clone, and her existence may forever alter our concepts of life and death. When the fictional Dr. Frankenstein built his monster from scavenged body parts, terrified filmgoers could still remind themselves it's only a movie. Few would have guessed that just decades later, science would be on the brink of actually creating a human being in the lab, not out of parts, but through an extraordinary process known as cloning. Once considered impossible, cloning is a dramatic advance that may someday end the tyranny of diseases like cancer and sickle cell anemia. But some fear we have opened a Pandora's box of freakish possibilities that could allow us to endlessly recreate ourselves or even bring the dead back to life. Critics argue that such matters are best left to nature. Simply put, cloning is making an exact copy, and in nature it is hardly uncommon. When a fertilized egg divides and separates, the result is two embryos, two sets of identical genetic codes, one set of identical twins. The challenge for science was duplicating the process artificially and at will. In the 1950s, researchers took DNA from one frog embryo and made a second frog, its exact genetic double. By the 1980s, the same process had been used to create cow and sheep embryos. However, scientists couldn't engineer a clone from a fully grown animal, at least not until Dolly. The whole world now knows who and what she is, the first mammal ever cloned from an adult. With her birth in Scotland last July, researchers crossed an historic threshold.
I have no doubt that we would be able to take the technology that was used in Scotland and perfected with human eggs. And within a few years, with a little bit of tinkering, they'll be able to clone human beings.
There is much about cloning that we still do not know.
That looming possibility prompted an immediate response from the president.
Upon human creation is not simply a matter of scientific inquiry. It is a matter of morality and spirituality as well. Therefore, today I am issuing a directive that
President Clinton's ban on federal funding of human cloning research came amidst rampant speculation that it was not a question of if, but when human cloning would be a reality.
Countries can pass laws, they can regulate, they can discourage in a very legitimate way, but they ultimately cannot control cloning. There's no way to prevent some latter-day Victor Frankenstein from cloning a human being if indeed she or he chooses to do so.
The presumed difficulty of imposing controls has spawned dire predictions. Perhaps cloning would lead to the creation of a workforce of enslaved clones, or end in a race of fiendish humanoids without souls. Or perhaps the search for people to clone will reach beyond the grave.
It is possible to freeze cells, and if the cells are frozen properly, you could bring, for example, a dead person back to life in the sense of bringing his genes back to life. People today could die, have their cells frozen down, and potentially in the future, these people could have clones of themselves born.
It's possible to imagine that we could clone someone from the past who was not just someone who was good, but also someone who was extremely evil. If, for example, someone recommended that we clone Adolf Hitler, the expectation would be that this would be the same evil leader of the past. But what we know, of course, is that that would be an impossibility.
It is impossible because a clone of an adult doesn't emerge from the lab as another fully formed adult. Far from it. The clone begins as a microscopic embryo floating at the bottom of a test tube. Imagine then that someone did indeed successfully clone Adolf Hitler. The embryo would have to be implanted into a surrogate mother, carried for 9 months until birth, then raised into adulthood. There is no way to know, let alone guarantee, who that person would turn out to be.
We don't know what produced Adolf Hitler in the first place. To what extent was it his genetic makeup? To what extent was it very small variations in the circumstances of his life?
The new person that is born will look eerily like the person that already exists, but it will be a different person. It'll have its own personality, its own soul.
The same limits apply to those we might want to see cloned. People like Albert Einstein or Ben Franklin. However, as tantalizing as it might seem to resurrect the past, the best use of cloning appears to be in building the future.
The most obvious advantage of cloning is for someone who cannot have children to be offered the opportunity to have children.
Got it?
For such couples, cloning could be a godsend, but others might see it as an opportunity to cheat death by recreating themselves.
There is the fear that people might want to clone themselves to achieve an immortality of some sort. And this is the worry that somebody will clone themselves into a child and then expect that child to live the same life that they lived.
The lure of immortality and the potential of cloning could add up to an even more appalling outcome, the possibility of a real-life Frankenstein.
There's the worry in many people's mind that individuals will want to clone themselves to be able to use their so-called clones for body parts if their body parts wear out later in life. Every clone that is born is going to be a complete human being. The person won't be a subhuman being in any way whatsoever. And if you took a heart out of that person, that would be murder. Nothing less than murder.
Cloning is like a hammer. You can use it for good purposes, or you can use it for objectionable purposes. You can use it to build a house, or you can use it to bash someone over the head. Cloning has the potential for providing a real service to humanity. Once we have gotten over the shock of the more startling possibilities, we will come to the realization that genuine advantages may attach to it.
The scariest cloning scenarios do seem unlikely, at least for now. But as we learned with splitting the atom, scientific advances can give rise to unintended consequences. With human cloning all but inevitable, this is a time for researchers, theologians, and civic leaders to lay down some ground rules. With foresight, cloning might serve us well. Otherwise, just like Frankenstein's monster, it could emerge from the lab as an awesome threat. Join me next time for another fascinating edition of Unsolved Mysteries.